Welcome to the F5 Application Security Manager, Web Application Firewall Demo Series. In this demo we'll show how to create security policies using manual policy building with BigIP ASM. F5's industry-leading